What does it say when a former quarterback from the same franchise suddenly speaks up, not to criticize the rookie, but to defend him? Because that's exactly what just happened in Cleveland, and it caught a lot of people off guard. Former Browns quarterback Johnny Manziel recently went public with his thoughts on the current situation surrounding Shedeur Sanders, and his comments hit differently for one reason: he's been there before. Same city, same media pressure, same impossible expectations. And according to Manziel, what's happening right now feels all too familiar. At the same time, something else quietly started turning heads across the league. Despite only starting a handful of games, Shedeur is already showing up in Pro Bowl fan voting. Let that sink in. Not a full season, not a polished situation. Just a few starts, and fans are already pushing his name into the conversation. That doesn't happen by accident. And that's where the story gets uncomfortable. Because while the national spotlight keeps growing, the pressure inside the Cleveland Browns seems to be moving in the opposite direction. Aggressive questions, constant scrutiny, a rookie being asked to explain problems much bigger than himself. Manziel didn't hold back when talking about that dynamic, calling out the way Cleveland's media culture can turn development into survival. Now, to be clear, there's no official controversy announced, no league investigation, no confirmed wrongdoing. But when a former quarterback openly says he feels bad for the current one, and fans are voting that same quarterback into elite conversations, it creates a contradiction that's hard to ignore. So how does a rookie with limited starts become one of the most talked about players in football? Why are defenses treating him like a proven threat already? And why does it feel like the pressure around him is growing faster than the support? Because once you line up Manziel's comments, the Pro Bowl buzz, and what's happening behind the scenes in Cleveland, one thing becomes clear: this story isn't just about performance. It's about perception, and what comes next could change everything. When Johnny Manziel speaks about Cleveland, people listen, not because of nostalgia, but because of experience. He's lived through the pressure cooker. He felt the media pylon. And he knows exactly how fast that environment can turn on a quarterback. That's why his recent comments caught so much attention. While talking with Pacman Jones, Manziel didn't tiptoe around the issue. He went straight at the culture surrounding the Cleveland Browns, specifically the way quarterbacks are treated once the cameras turn on. According to Manziel, what he's seeing play out with Shedeur Sanders feels eerily familiar. He pointed to the post-game press conferences, the loaded questions, the tone that feels less like curiosity and more like interrogation. In Manziel's view, it's not normal to put that kind of weight on a young quarterback who's still trying to find his footing, especially one who's being asked to revive a franchise while learning on the fly. What made his comments stand out is that they weren't defensive excuses, they were warnings. Manziel openly questioned why a starting quarterback, especially a rookie, is being asked to address rumors, coaching decisions, and organizational dysfunction that have nothing to do with execution on the field. From his perspective, that kind of environment creates a no-win situation. Play well and the questions don't stop. Struggle and the scrutiny multiplies. Now, to be clear, Manziel didn't accuse anyone of deliberate wrongdoing. He didn't claim sabotage or intent. His frustration was directed at the culture, the way narratives form quickly, and how quarterbacks are often left standing alone at the center of the storm. And that's where fans leaned in. Because Manziel knows what it's like to walk into those press rooms after a loss and feel like the story's already written. He knows how damaging it can be when the media conversation shifts from football to blame. And hearing him say he feels bad for Shedeur struck a nerve, especially with fans who believe the rookie has handled the pressure with composure. In many ways, Manziel's comments reframed the entire situation. This wasn't just about one bad game or one tough question. It was about a pattern, one that's existed in Cleveland long before Shedeur arrived. And once a former quarterback starts connecting those dots publicly, it forces everyone else to look closer too. Because if Manziel is right, then what's happening now isn't an isolated moment. It's history repeating itself, with a new quarterback standing in the same spotlight. The pressure didn't start on the field, it started in the room afterward. Every week, as Shedeur steps in front of the microphones, the questions feel heavier than what most rookies are asked to carry. Not just about reads or missed throws, but about things far beyond his control. Coaching decisions, organizational direction, even speculation about whether the system around him is actually helping or hurting him. That's where many fans say the line gets crossed. In most NFL cities, rookies are protected early. The messaging stays simple: learn, grow, adjust. But in Cleveland, the tone has felt different, sharper, more accusatory, almost as if the answers are expected to explain problems that have existed long before Shedeur ever took a snap. Inside the Cleveland Browns, that dynamic has created an uncomfortable spotlight. Because when a young quarterback is repeatedly asked to respond to loaded narratives, it subtly shifts responsibility. The focus moves away from structure and towards survival. To be clear, there's no confirmed agenda here, no proof that the media is acting with intent, but perception matters. And perception says Shedeur is being asked to carry the emotional weight of a franchise that's still searching for its identity. What makes this stand out even more is how composed he's been through it. No public complaints, no finger pointing, just calm answers and accountability, even when the questions seem designed to provoke controversy. That restraint has earned him quiet respect from fans who recognize how rare that poise is for a rookie. But the danger isn't just in the questions themselves, it's in what they create. Narratives stick, clips travel. A single quote can overshadow an entire performance. And once a storyline takes hold, it becomes hard to shake, especially in a market that's been burned before. This is exactly why Johnny Manziel's comments resonated so deeply. Because he wasn't just criticizing questions, he was warning about the long-term effects of that environment. When quarterbacks feel like they're constantly defending themselves instead of developing, confidence erodes faster than mechanics ever could. And that's the concern fans keep circling back to. Because if Shedeur is already being treated like a finished product instead of a developing one, the margin for growth shrinks fast. Mistakes feel bigger, progress feels smaller, and patience disappears. And once that pressure becomes the story, it stops being about football. It becomes about endurance, and whether the system around him is built to support growth or simply to survive the noise that never seems to fade in Cleveland. What makes this situation even more unusual is how quickly everything moved and how little margin for error there was from the start. When Shedeur arrived in Cleveland, his path looked nothing like a typical rookie quarterback's development plan. Drafted later than most franchise quarterbacks, he didn't come in with guaranteed reps, built-in patience, or a long runway to grow. Instead, he spent the offseason and preseason watching from the background while others took first-team snaps. That part matters. In the NFL, reps are currency. They're where timing is built, trust forms, and confidence grows. Without them, even the most talented quarterbacks are forced to learn in fragments. And yet, despite going through the entire offseason without consistent first-team work, Shedeur was suddenly asked to step in and lead the offense when the situation turned urgent. That's a tough ask for any rookie. Inside the Cleveland Browns, the shift happened fast. One week, Shedeur was still viewed as a developmental piece. The next, he was the starting quarterback, expected to stabilize an offense and absorb the pressure that comes with it. No gradual transition, no extended adjustment period, just immediate responsibility. And here, where fans started questioning the setup. Because development isn't just about talent, it's about preparation. When a quarterback is asked to perform before the foundation is fully laid, mistakes become inevitable. Timing routes look rushed, reads feel late, and instead of growing naturally, the player is constantly reacting. To be clear, there's no suggestion that this was done intentionally. Teams change plans all the time based on injuries and circumstances. But the result is what people are reacting to, a rookie thrown into the fire without the usual safety net. What's made this even more noticeable is how defenses have responded. Opponents haven't treated Shedeur like a raw prospect. They've blitzed him aggressively, tested his protection, and forced quick decisions, the kind of pressure usually reserved for quarterbacks who have already proven they can carve teams up if given time. And despite all of that, Shedeur has shown flashes that explain why the buzz keeps growing. Calm under pressure, poise in tight windows, confidence that doesn't disappear after mistakes. That's why fans keep circling back to the same thought. Imagine what this could look like with a real runway. Because when a quarterback shows this much composure without ideal preparation, it raises a bigger question. Was the system ever designed to help him grow? Or was he always going to be asked to survive first and develop later? And once that question enters the conversation, everything that follows feels even heavier. What's happening on Sundays tells its own story, and opposing defenses have clearly gotten the message. The moment Shedeur Sanders stepped into the starting role, defensive coordinators didn't treat him like a rookie they could ease into the league. They treated him like a threat that had to be neutralized immediately. Heavy blitzes, early pressure, disguised looks designed to force rushed decisions. This wasn't respect given out of kindness, it was strategy. Because when Shedeur has time, he's dangerous. Fans watching the tape noticed it quickly. When the pocket holds even briefly, he's calm. He scans. He throws with confidence. Deep shots connect. Intermediate routes open up. And defenses know that. That's why pressure has become the default response. Don't let him settle. Don't let him see the field. Make the game uncomfortable from the first snap. And that's where the situation around him becomes impossible to ignore. Inside the Cleveland Browns, protection has been inconsistent at best. Missed assignments, quick collapses, linemen getting beaten off the snap. It's all on film. Opposing teams see it and they've adjusted accordingly. If you can get home with pressure, you don't have to worry about what Shedeur might do downfield. What's striking is how predictable the response has been from defenses and how little variation there's been to counter it. Extra blockers rarely show up. Tight ends aren't consistently kept in. Schemes don't shift enough to slow the rush. As a result, Shedeur is often forced into survival mode before plays can fully develop. To be clear, there's no claim that this is intentional neglect. Football is complex, and adjustments don't always come instantly. But when blitzes keep working week after week, opponents have no reason to stop. And yet, even under that pressure, Shedeur continues to show why teams are targeting him in the first place. He doesn't panic easily. He keeps his eyes downfield. He takes hits and gets back up. Those traits are rare, especially in a rookie facing constant heat. That's why the narrative matters. Some critics see the pressure and call it proof he's struggling. Others see the same pressure and recognize what it really is: respect. Defenses don't sell out like this against quarterbacks they don't fear. So when people ask why teams are blitzing him nonstop, the answer isn't complicated. They're doing it because they've seen what happens if they don't. And that reality adds weight to everything else around him, because it shows that while the support system may still be catching up, the league already knows exactly who it's dealing with. This is where the conversation took a turn that almost nobody saw coming. Quietly, without a big announcement or media push, Shedeur Sanders started showing up in Pro Bowl fan voting. Not at the bottom, not buried, but right there among established names, despite only starting a small number of games. That's not normal. Pro Bowl voting usually rewards longevity, highlight reels, and full-season resumes. Rookies rarely sniff the conversation unless they've had a breakout year from week one. And yet, here was Shedeur, with limited starts, still drawing enough attention to crack the rankings. Fans noticed immediately, and so did critics. Some brushed it off as hype, others pointed to his last name. A few dismissed it as social media noise. But that explanation doesn't fully hold up, because fan votes don't come from narratives alone, they come from attention. And attention has to be earned somehow. What makes this moment so interesting is when it's happening, not after a perfect season, not behind an elite offensive line, but in the middle of chaos, in a situation where pressure outweighs protection. And scrutiny often outweighs support. That context matters. Inside the Cleveland Browns, Shedeur hasn't been shielded. He's been tested, blitzed relentlessly, questioned publicly, thrown into games without a long runway, and still fans are responding. That response says something. It suggests people aren't just voting for box scores. They're voting for poise, for flashes of control under pressure, for the sense that when things settle, even briefly, Shedeur looks like he belongs. And in today's NFL, that impression travels fast. Now, to be clear, Pro Bowl votes don't crown careers. They don't prove greatness, and they certainly don't guarantee future success. But they do reveal momentum. They show who's capturing the public's imagination and who's driving conversations beyond their market. That's why this development hit differently. Because while some debate whether Shedeur is being overhyped or undersupported, fans are already pushing him into elite conversations, not as a finished product, but as a signal, a glimpse of what could be. And once that kind of buzz starts building this early, it doesn't just disappear. It follows you, which raises a bigger question. If this is the level of attention he's drawing now, what happens when the situation around him finally catches up to the talent everyone else is already reacting to? At this point, it's no longer just about what's happening on the field. It's about what's happening around him. Whether people want to admit it or not, Shedeur Sanders has become one of the biggest attention drivers in the entire league, and that didn't happen by accident. Every week, his name dominates conversations across television, radio, podcasts, and social media. Segments lead with him. Debates revolve around him. Clips featuring him travel faster than most highlights. That level of focus usually comes after years of success. For Shedeur, it came almost instantly. Some fans say it's because of his confidence. Others point to his composure under pressure. And yes, there are people who argue it's tied to his last name. But regardless of where you land, the result is the same. The NFL benefits when Shedeur is part of the conversation. Inside the Cleveland Browns, this has created an interesting dynamic. On one hand, the attention brings scrutiny. Every throw is analyzed. Every expression becomes a headline. On the other hand, it brings relevance. Ratings spike. Engagement rises. The Browns, a franchise that's often struggled to control its narrative, suddenly sit at the center of league-wide discussion. That matters more than people realize. Because in today's NFL, attention equals value. It drives storylines. It fuels debate shows. It keeps teams in the spotlight even when the record doesn't. And right now, Shedeur is doing that almost single-handedly. You can see it in how broadcasts frame games. You can hear it in how analysts debate his future more than his stats. You can feel it in how opposing fans react, either tuning in to support him or hopping to see him fail. Indifference is gone, and that's the real shift. Now, to be clear, attention cuts both ways. It amplifies mistakes. It shortens patience. It invites louder criticism. But it also signals something important. People believe there's something here worth watching. That's why dismissing this as hype misses the point. Hype fades. Attention sticks when it's fueled by intrigue. And Shedeur brings intrigue every week, not just with throws, but with the questions his presence creates about development, coaching, and organizational direction. In many ways, he's become a mirror for the league. Fans project their beliefs onto him. Media debates what he represents, and the Browns find themselves forced to respond, whether they want to or not. Because once a player becomes this central to the NFL's attention cycle, the story stops being just about football. It becomes about what happens next, and whether the environment around him is ready for the spotlight he's already commanding. As all of this unfolds, one question keeps surfacing behind the scenes, and it's the one nobody in Cleveland can avoid anymore. What happens next with the coaching staff? Inside the Cleveland Browns, the pressure isn't just on the rookie quarterback. It's quietly shifting upward. Reports claim that the final stretch of the season carries weight not only for player development, but for the future of Kevin Stefanski himself. Wins matter, progress matters, and how the team looks, not just the record, matters more than ever. That's where rumors started heating up. Over the last few weeks, social media buzz and league chatter have linked Cleveland to a name that instantly changes the temperature of any conversation: Bill Belichick. To be clear, there's been no official confirmation, no statements from ownership, no verified reports tying Belichick directly to Cleveland, but the mere suggestion has been enough to spark intense debate. Because if that rumor holds any weight at all, it signals something bigger than a routine evaluation. Belichick represents authority, structure, and immediate expectations. His presence would instantly reshape how everything is viewed, especially the quarterback position. And that's why fans are split. Some believe a coach like Belichick could provide stability and protection for Shedeur Sanders. Others worry that such a move would reset the timeline entirely, putting even more pressure on a young player still finding his footing. What makes the rumor so powerful isn't whether it's true, it's why it exists. It exists because uncertainty creates speculation, because mixed messaging invites theories, and because when a franchise sits at the center of league attention, every possible outcome gets amplified, even unverified ones. For Stefanski, this stretch feels pivotal. Every decision is magnified, every adjustment is dissected, and every game becomes a referendum, not just on results, but on leadership. That doesn't mean his job is already lost. It means the margin for error is shrinking fast. And for Shedeur, it raises another layer of pressure. Coaching changes don't happen in a vacuum. They reshape schemes, expectations, and narratives overnight. Development plans can vanish as quickly as they appear. That's why this moment feels so fragile. Because if these rumors grow louder, whether justified or not, they could accelerate decisions that impact everyone involved. And once coaching speculation reaches this level, it rarely fades quietly. It forces action. And what Cleveland chooses to do or not do next may define not just the end of this season, but the direction of everything that follows. When you zoom out and look at everything together, this moment feels bigger than one rookie, one coach, or even one season. For the Cleveland Browns, this is another crossroads, but unlike past years, the spotlight isn't fading, it's getting brighter. The attention around Shedeur Sanders has accelerated the timeline. Decisions that might have once played out quietly are now being debated publicly, dissected daily, and judged in real time. And that changes everything. This isn't just about whether Shedeur succeeds or struggles. It's about how success is defined inside the building. Is it wins alone? Is it development? Is it protecting leadership? Or is it finally aligning the entire organization around one clear direction? Because right now, fans see mixed signals, and mixed signals create doubt. What makes this moment so important is how rare it is. You don't often see a rookie with limited starts already influencing league-wide conversations. You don't often see a young quarterback driving ratings, debates, and Pro Bowl buzz while still learning on the job. That kind of presence forces organizations to reveal who they really are. And Cleveland can't avoid that anymore. The pressure surrounding Shedeur isn't just pressure to perform. It's pressure on the system around him to either support growth or expose its flaws. Every blitz he survives, every calm answer he gives at the podium, every flash of poise under chaos raises the same quiet question. What could this look like if everything else was aligned? At the same time, this moment tests patience. For fans, for coaches, for the front office, because quick reactions can shape careers just as much as long-term plans. And once narratives harden, they're hard to undo. That's why this stretch matters so much. Not because it guarantees a breakthrough, not because it promises failure, but because it reveals priorities. It shows who gets protected, who gets pushed, and who's expected to carry the weight when things feel unstable. And no matter how the season ends, one thing is already clear. This isn't just another chapter in Browns history. It's a defining moment. Because the way Cleveland handles this situation will echo far beyond this year. It will shape how players view the organization, how fans trust it, and how the league remembers what happened when opportunity, attention, and uncertainty all collided at the same time. And that's why everyone is watching, not just to see what Shedeur does next, but to see what Cleveland chooses to become.